How we all doing, everyone? Just gonna be me here tonight or today. We were initially planning to go live after Monday Night Football. I fell asleep. The Chargers Broncos game wasn't exactly the most exciting one, so ended up not going live yesterday. But wanted to do a quick live. Chase and Isaac are both at work today, so just gonna be me. Probably not a super long one today. I'm not sure how many people are gonna be joining, just because this is not our typical time to be talking baseball. We will be going live tonight, so we'll have another live later here, and then we'll be going live after every single game in the series. I'm not sure if we'll have a video or anything out on Thursday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, depending how long the series goes, we'll have a lot of stuff out. But I wanted to quickly go over this Dodgers series just because I feel like the Dodgers series was absolutely electric, and I think a lot of people are looking back on that. Isaac and I did kind of a quick reaction. We were just more hyped than anything, but I think that this series showed a couple of things. I think the first thing is that the Padres bullpen is super legit. The Padres bullpen, we saw those. I mean, I posted it on YouTube. The Padres are the 12th ranked postseason pitching group. Yeah, okay. That was absolutely stupid take from the MLB account. But I think that we're looking at this series now. I think that we have seen a couple things from this team. We've seen the late inning rallying. We've seen them win games where they strike first and they hold a super small lead, and the starters are able to just do enough. But we saw the Padres bullpen really, they were the difference in that series, in my opinion. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from that series. I think offensively, I think the Padres did their job. I don't think they did anything crazy outside of the seventh inning on Saturday. That was absolutely electric, and that was just so clutch and just such an emotional moment for the Padres team and the Padres fans, and kind of both of them together after the game as well with Will Myers at the bar and such like that. That was just awesome to see. I'm also very jealous of anyone that was at the game. It looked so cool. I wish I was in San Diego right now, just because it would be amazing to catch a game. So hopefully anyone listening, hopefully a couple of you guys are going these next 2 days, because that looked awesome. I think my dad was planning to go, so hopefully he's able to do that. But yeah, Johnny asked if anyone's going to the game tonight. Hopefully someone is, because that'll be super fun tonight. But I wanted to bring up a little bit of this Dodgers series. If anyone else has any questions about it or kind of looking back on anything, I think another thing we can discuss is the Padres infield defense compared to the Dodgers infield defense. Dude, the Padres defense was lights out. They were making plays left and right. Manny Machado, Jake Cronenworth, Ha-Seong Kim, Will Myers. He did have an error that allowed a run early in the series, but for the most part, he was really good. And then you had the Dodgers side, where you have Muncy playing a lot of third base, who isn't very good. Lux actually looked all right at second, but I mean, Muncy's not a very good defender. And then Trey Turner had, I know it was technically 2 errors, but he basically had 3 errors, and a couple of those were really, really pivotal. So you look at kind of the Padres' recipe to win, and it's, we need to score a few runs if our starter is decent. Because look at how these games, look at what is this? For the 7 playoff games so far, you have 5 wins and 2 losses. In the 5 wins, your starters weren't always necessarily great, but they were good. They gave you a chance. In the 2 losses, it was Blake Snell's rough outing in New York, and it was Mike Clevenger in game 1 against the Dodgers, where they just didn't give you a chance. That was really the difference in those games. So if your starter is able to keep it close, the Padres have been able to win in games where their starters are just able to keep it close. So the defense, amazing. The clutch hitting, I mean, I don't want to say amazing, but there was some clutch hitting in the playoffs so far for this team. But I think you look at it in the defense and the bullpen. That's really the recipe to win for this team. I think the Padres-Phillies series, I'll start getting into that a little bit, because I know that's where we're all at now. We're moved past the Dodgers at this point. But this Padres-Phillies championship series is going to be really, really good. I think you look at it from the Padres standpoint, you have a better starting rotation, better starters going. Now, let's not discount Wheeler and Nola. Wheeler and Nola are really, really good. So games 1 and games 2 are going to be tough. I think that the Padres could split one of those, and I still think they should fare well in this series, but your bullpen's significantly better than the Phillies bullpen. Offensively, you have one area where I think where the Padres could get burned in, and that is the power department. The Phillies are really, really good at hitting home runs. And right now, I think it's pretty much, I want to say the only guys that have been hitting, I mean, I know Bryce Harper's been on a tear, but a lot of the guys early on in their lineup haven't really been that great so far this season. But power-wise, it's kind of just one of those things where yeah, Castellanos can break out. Schwarber can break out. Any of those guys at any moment can just start hitting bombs. And we talked about it last year, or not last year, but throughout the offseason and throughout this season, is the Padres they lack slugging. The Phillies do not lack slugging. However, that's probably the only area where I really feel like they have an advantage against the Padres. They have a better lineup because they slug more. If you can reduce that, that's going to look really good. If you can match their power, or even if you can get close to matching their power, defensively, way better. Pitching, I'm not going to say way better because they have a couple aces, but significantly better. And so then it just comes down to the lineup. And I mean, if we get some bombs in this series, I think you're going to feel pretty good. I also see Cobra says right here, not in Petco, they won't. That's another great point because I'm bringing up the power stuff. What were the numbers that they were flashing on the screen on ESPN and Fox Sports was basically, yeah, Petco, you can't hit home runs here and no one scores. It's the area where teams score least. That's huge. So, I mean, but still, let's look through this Phillies lineup and kind of see like where I'm at here. So this is their lineup that they used against Atlanta last time. I don't know if there's going to be any changes to it, but they have Schwarber, Hoskins, Real Muto, Harper, Castellanos, Bum, I think it's pronounced Bum, Stott, and then Segura and Marsh. Segura and Marsh were also like tearing up at the bottom of the lineup, which is kind of funny. Same issue, same kind of deal going on with the Padres with Grisham and Nola. So the two guys in the bottom lineup tearing it up. And then for the Padres, I know his numbers are not going to be nearly as good as Bryce Harper's in the playoffs, but I mean, Machado's still been super clutch. He's had the big time hits. He's had the big time home runs. So he's been a guy that's come up really clutch where you kind of have your superstar in the heart of the order. But the difference is that Schwarber's playing horrible. Hoskins had that big time home run. I think it was a 3-run bomb where he spiked his bat. But outside that, he hasn't been very good. Castellanos hasn't been very good. Real Muto's been okay. But a lot of these guys haven't been good outside of Bryce Harper and then Segura and Marsh at the bottom of the lineup. So a lot of these guys are struggling. It's still, you don't want to look past their lineup because it has a ton of pop. Now, what I'm hoping that we see a lot of contact from this team. I was watching Talking Baseball. It's like the John Boy show, and they were talking about like, you know, what do you kind of take of like all these guys in the playoffs that hit, not that, you know, that have low strikeout rate and just put the ball in play. Because they were talking about the Padres, and they're like, look, like you look at a guy like Austin Nola, for instance, and he just keeps hitting the ball in play, and it is paying huge dividends to this team right now, where him just hitting the ball in play is advancing runners, or there's an air by Turner, or he, you know, Ha-Seong Kim hits that one down the line that where the third baseman, I think it was Turner, I want to say, is in like kind of expecting a bunt from Kim, and he ends up just hitting a chopper down the line. That's usually not even a hit, but for that case, it's a 2-run double. It completely changes the complexion of the ball game. So for the Padres, a lot of this thing is going to come down to, are they going to continue to put the ball in play? And if there is a team that you want to put the ball in play against, it is the Philadelphia Phillies. Their defense is atrocious. I don't know their general manager's name off the top of my head, but he's kind of been known of building teams. He did it with the Tigers. He was the Tigers GM a while back. His philosophy is he doesn't think that defense matters at all. He is all offense. You know, you get a couple good like high leverage starters, like or high end starters, and you just build only offensively, right? That's an advantage that the Padres have. If you just keep hitting the ball in play, you just keep putting in play, there's going to be a moment where you hit one to the outfield and Castellanos falls down, or I mean, he might DH a little bit, or Schwarber falls down. Both in the final game of that Braves-Phillies series, both Schwarber and Castellanos were actually starting in the outfield. So if you just hit one, if you gap a couple baseballs, those might turn into triples. Those might turn into inside the park home runs with how awful that defense is. So I think that's a big spot where we've seen the Padres, and I hate to use this, but they've been battling at the plate, not trying to bring back a Tingler for everyone, but we have seen them do that at a really, really high level of just keep hitting the ball in play. So I think that's a big thing. Yeah, I see some comments here with their shaky defense. Hit and run baseball can be huge. Totally. See a couple other things about the matchup. Devin says here, Padres have the better pitching depth than the Phillies. I think they do. I really think they do. Long outings from our starters is key. I think that's another big one, but I would like Gil, I'm there with you because if you have, especially early on, especially these first two games, but I still feel really confident with the Padres bullpen. And like a lot of guys, and we've been lucky because like if you can go 6 innings as a starter, say just 6 innings, 7, 8, 9, you're feeling pretty confident. You can kind of go either Nick Martinez, maybe Garcia in the 7th, depending on the matchups. But Suarez Hader 8, 9. has to be the best back end of a bullpen right now left in the postseason. I can't think of, I mean, I know that Hader had a horrible year. I could care less that Hader had a horrible year. He is so on right now, and he looks unhittable. And look at the top of the order for the Pod or the Dodgers in that final game. He goes against 1, 2, 3. It doesn't even matter. He's just gassing them. He's throwing absolute just nasty. Same thing with Suarez. Those two guys look absolutely locked down from the pen. Yeah, we got to keep the bullpen and rested and looking good, because if you can get to the 8th inning with a lead, it feels like from our standpoint, from being Padres fans, it feels absolute money right now. So if I'm really looking at this series, I think that you're going to just need. I think you're right. I think now that I'm kind of thinking about it more, long outings are key for our starters, because if they're able to go 6 or 7 and they're able to pitch well, you're fully expecting to win that game. You're fully expecting that. If you have a quality start, you should win every single quality start you have. So, I'm feeling good about this series. I'll get into predictions later on of like what I actually think is going to happen. But I'm going to keep going through some of these questions here. Padres have better pitching depth than the Phillies. I think so. I think the bullpen I think that's one of the biggest areas where we're going to look at in this one. I haven't seen a single national commenter take the Padres. The disrespect is great. Are you talking for this series or the last series? I haven't really seen any predictions for the Padres-Phillies, but I would imagine that the majority of like commentators and broadcasters and stuff should be picking the Padres. I think the Padres are the better team. It doesn't mean you're going to win, but I think that they've been better like the whole season outside of like a couple weeks when the Phillies were ahead of them in the standings. But I don't know. That's a little weird to me. Johnny says Suarez went from our opening day villain to our postseason hero. Yeah, I mean, I remember everyone was freaking out like, no way. And I think it's just because opening day there's so much pressure. But that was Robert Suarez's first ever MLB outing, and they said, "Oh, we're going to throw you to the Wolves," and he just looked off. He could not locate. Since he's kind of figured stuff out, he's been insane. He's been absolutely insane. And John also kept coming back to that disrespect to the Padres, where everyone's picking the Phillies over them. John is saying that he's taught that they were talking about this series, so that's surprising. And I think it's close. Like, I think it's closer than most people like want to give it. Maybe on either side. Of course, that's going to be the case. Any Padres and Phillies fans are going to be biased. That's just the reality of it. I'm going to be biased. I'll tell you guys that right now. But this is one where the Padres have home field advantage. They're coming off beating 100-win teams. Not to discredit what the Phillies did. I mean, you beat the Cardinals and the Braves. That's also very, very good. But both these teams are hot. The difference is, I think the Padres roster is more complete. I think that the Phillies rely so heavily on hitting home runs that if they don't do that in a couple of these games, they're not going to win. Like, you're going to see the Padres squeak out victories like they've been doing. I forgot who it was. Was it? I think it was Cobra said it. That Petco Park's going to play a large role in the Phillies being able to hit home runs, and I completely agree with that. I like this question right here. Devin asks, "Is it possible Austin Nola drives in the only run against his little brother Aaron?" I don't know if you guys saw, but Austin was talking about just like, because he's tired right now. I mean, he's caught every single game this postseason, and he basically said like, yeah, like I'm excited. I really want to like play against my brother. And then I think he said like, yeah, I can't wait till the postseason's over. Not like in a negative way, but in like so I can kind of kick back and have a beer in the hot tub. So I thought that was pretty funny. But I mean, Austin Nola's been insanely clutch this postseason. And that's really what it's going to come down to, I think, if you're the Padres. Clutch hitting and avoiding the clutch long ball from the Phillies, because that's how they beat the Braves. Last year, we talked about it all the time with the Braves and how they were able to have that tremendous run. And really what the Braves identity was we're going to hit home runs. We went and traded for these guys. They're not necessarily good outfielders. They're pretty crappy in terms of defense, but they're going to hit bombs, and we're going to hit more home runs than you, and that's how we're going to win. That's the Phillies recipe. If you can avoid the long ball, I saw someone earlier said if you can, not really pitch to Harper, don't give anything Harper in the middle of the plate. How about that? Maybe avoid Harper as best as you possibly can. Limit Harper. How about that? Because you're not probably gonna be able to avoid him. Bryce Harper is an insane baseball player, but it's clutch hitting. If you can bring in a couple runs a game and avoid the long ball, the Padres are going to win this series. I'm very confident in that. Now, could there be a game where the Phillies beat the crap out of the Padres in this series, or a couple games like that? Yes, because the Phillies might just have a home run derby type games in a couple of those. I mean, we saw that in a couple of the Braves games. I mean, the Phillies power is ridiculous. Like I don't think we can underrate that. It's really crazy. Couple questions here. Suarez has been the same Suarez from the Japanese league, and so did Martinez. Glad Preller is our senior scout. Yeah, I mean the overseas talent that the Padres have been able to bring in both Martinez, Suarez, Ha-Seong Kim, Pierce Johnson. Dude, these guys are playing huge roles in playoff games, and it's a huge reason for why the Padres are having a lot of success. So I really like you bringing that up. That in terms of the scouting overseas, it's paid dividends because it has been amazing for this team. And you look at some of the guys that have been the biggest impact players. Suarez is one of he's added I think he's top 5 in wins added in the postseason. He's a relief pitcher, and that's how dominant he has been. And just goes to show how big of a deal your relief pitching is in the playoffs. So I think that's a great point, though. Absolutely great point. Brisk asks here, why does the media not want San Diego to win? I swear they never give the team credit for wins and always chose the opposing teams to win the series. I don't know. I dig it, though. I love that that's the case. I think that we look at this one and we go, okay, yeah, you want to just keep discounting the Padres. I think they feed off of that. I mean, we brought up the Padres got ranked 12th out of pitching, and then they got ranked 12th in terms of pitching, right? And it felt like it just kind of fueled Darvish. It fueled Musgrove, Snell, maybe not Snell as much, but these guys are feeling it. Like, really, you're gonna say that we're 12th? Pretty sure we have 3 high-end starters for one, and we have multiple guys coming out of the pen that we feel are unhittable. And that's what it's looked like so far. So if the media still keeps wanting to discounting the Padres, that's fine. Have them be underdogs this series, have them take this series, and then have them be underdogs next series as well. I think that makes the Padres more hungry to win. I think it feeds them in terms of the underdog mentality. So I actually love it, even though it is a little bit ridiculous, but keep doing it because it's working right now. Johnny says, if you would have told me last month that I would have complete confidence with Grish and Nola to contribute in big situations, I would have laughed in your face. I mean, you guys saw we did a segment on why Jose Azocar should start over Trent Grisham. You know how bad of a take that is? That might be the worst take of the channel that we've had, and all of us felt that way. We saw people talking on Twitter you got to start Grisham because of defense. We're like, Grisham hasn't got he's got 2 hits in the last month, and then what does he do? I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen, but his stance is totally different. I don't know if that's what it is. I think that has part of it, but it just feels like Grish is playing confident. And dude, his home runs this year, I know he has 3. They have been off 2 of the best pitchers in the game and just another super clutch home run. So Grish has been unbelievable, man. It's a ton of credit to Trent Grisham because, yeah, I would have had any faith in him or Nola for that matter. And yeah, so if you look at the Padres in terms of OPS and right now in the playoffs, their 1 and 2 guys. Okay, their second guy is actually Manny, but their 1 and 3 guys are Grisham with a 1,300 OPS and Nola with a 916 OPS. Just ridiculous. Padres players that need to get it going. Okay, so and then Cobra just said that Clev is going to go game 3. I don't know why that's the case. That seems kind of weird considering that Musgrove would have the right number of off days. Maybe it's just that I wonder if they want the advantage on that game 4. I wonder if that's what it is. But Clev needs to perform better. He was awful against the Dodgers. Manaea, we haven't even seen Manaea, so I'm not going to bring too much about him. But Bell and Drury, Bell has, I think, is off Nola. Bell's hit really well off Nola. So we should see him in game 2. I don't know if he's gonna play against Wheeler, but Bell, I think one of Bell or Drury or Myers for that matter, you need at least one of those guys to be really clutch in the middle of the order. Because if you're looking at the Padres lineup right now, you're getting a lot of production from up top. But after Manny Machado, it's been rough because you've had Drury, who's done basically nothing. You've had Myers, that's done basically nothing outside of a home run. You have Crone, who got going in that second series, which is super clutch, and he's just been. I mean, you know how we feel about Crone. I mean, I don't know what it is, but you put that guy, you get guys on base with 2 outs, give him 2-strike count, and he's gonna bring them in almost every single time. It feels like, honestly, in that moment on Saturday, I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know if there's anyone I'd rather have than Crone up right now in this spot, and not to say that he's better than any of the other guys like Soto and Manny and stuff like that. But it just for whatever reason, if you have a 2-strike count on Crone with guys on late in the game, he gets a knock. He always gets a knock. I don't know how, but it always happens, it feels like. So outside of him, though, like Drury, Myers, Bell, none of those guys have been performing. They need to step it up. And I brought up that, you're lacking when you compare the Padres to the Phillies, you're lacking in power. That's where the power needs to come from. Obviously, we already talked about Grish's insane postseason. It came from there. Soto, Machado, you're expecting it to come from your superstars, but Bell, Drury, Myers, those guys need to bring some pop, and it would be so beneficial for this team. And it can be the difference in a series. It can be a Bell home run or a Drury home run in a game can mean so much, especially when you look at how many guys are left on base by the Padres. Not in a negative way, just that they work the count, they draw a lot of walks. So you're gonna need a little bit more power, and especially you're gonna need a little bit more power when you play in Philly, because that's where the Phillies are gonna hit a lot of bombs. So I think that's kind of the biggest spot of like when you go onto the road in this series, who's gonna steal a game? Who's gonna steal 2 games on that in that road trip? Because that can be the difference in this series. So one of those guys must step up. I think that I feel like we've been saying that almost every series. And it's been Grish that stepped up, which has been nice, but I think that's very accurate that one of those guys needs to play well. Dude says a totally different Padre team than what the Phillies faced during the season. Yeah, not the same at all. And same for the Dodgers series as well. Same for a lot of these teams when they matter. Even the Mets, both teams, honestly, in the Mets series, because the Mets didn't have DeGrom when we had played them before. Then they had DeGrom. Well, the Padres didn't have any of the guys that they had at the deadline. And when we've been talking about these series too, one of the things that gets discussed is, oh, well, look at the Padres where they rank in terms of among MLB teams. It's like, yeah, they're pretty middle ground. But why are we talking about this team when they didn't have the same players? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, you didn't have Hader, and when you had Hader, he wasn't looking very good for a while. You had like half of your bullpen out for the course of the season. Of course, they're middle tier bullpen when you look at the overall rankings. They sucked at the beginning of the year too. It's like, well, yeah, well, how did they finish? Well, in the last couple weeks of the year, they started getting going, and then you look at it and it's like, well, this guy throws 101 with a ton of movement. Oh, you have Josh Hader coming on the ninth. Oh, you have like about 4 other guys that you feel pretty confident in, and Pierce Johnson, Garcia, Martinez. Like you have all these different guys, and it's like, so the mid inning guys are actually pretty damn good, and you have 2 guys that are locked down coming in the 8th and the ninth. So why are we looking at these overall, this kind of like how this team is ranked? But yeah, I think I think it's looking pretty good. In terms of the differences when we matched up with Philly older on. People are talking about Grisham changes his grip right here. Solo says he holds a bat like a golf club. Yeah, dude, it looks so funny the way that he like puts his thumb up. I always think of that. It looks like he's swinging a golf club. But that's why he always hits the bombs on the low pitches, I guess. Love the bottom of the lineup there. What got us going to win in the Dodgers game? 100%. Every single time it felt like when the bottom of the line. It's really weird to say because all season the bottom of the lineup has been non-existent. It's like, oh, playoff time. Let's step it up. Let's start balling out. So that's been super fun to see. Thoughts on the Goose? Dude, I love all the Goose stuff. And also something that I don't really know why it became a Padres thing. Now, I'm happy it's a Padres thing. Don't get me wrong, but I have no idea why that became a Padres thing. But it just feels like everyone's just riding the momentum. So I think it's been really cool to see the Padres fan base just be like, yeah, we're just gonna take ownership of the Goose. That's our rally Goose, and we're just gonna say, yep, that's the Goose right there. That's the Padres Goose. Even though the Dodgers fans probably could have done the same thing, but they didn't. So yeah, Goose is a difference in that series, I guess. Resign Will just for fun. We'll do a lot of the re-signing stuff in the offseason. There's just so many different ways that the Padres can go. Just got here at work. If it goes to 6 games, I have tickets for those games. That's awesome, Joseph. That's super sick. I thought about going to the Philly game, but I just can't do it. It's so much money, and it's a trip for me as well. But I wish, man. If Nola sits out for a game, who should be the second catcher? So I will say this. I don't think Nola's going to sit at all this postseason, in all honesty. I really don't think he is. I would say it's going to be Campy because I don't think Alfaro is healthy enough to catch. The only thing is that really depends on who's pitching. Because if Alfaro is healthy enough to catch, then it's going to be Alfaro. But he's obviously not healthy. I mean, we saw since he's been off the IL, he's not been the same guy. So I think that's why you would see Campy. But like if Snell's pitching, there's a 0% chance that Campy catches. So then you would see Alfaro. So I really just think that depends on what matchup. But barring injury, I don't know. I don't think there's any reason that Noah won't catch every single game for the rest of the postseason. See what else we got? Seems like Kim is always scoring. Yeah, I mean, Kim is just electric. I mean, I feel like he's just the heartbeat of this squad. Also, late happy birthday to Ha-Seong Kim. His birthday was yesterday. He turned 27. So happy birthday to him. I think the only thing I want to do is I want to do my predictions of how I see this series playing out. So game 1, you got Wheeler against Darvish. Game 2, you got Noah against Snell. And game 3, I think it's going to be Ranger Suarez, or it could be Syndergaard. I'm not exactly sure who's going to go in game 3 for Philly. But apparently Clev's going to go for us in game 3, and then you would have Musgrove game 4, and then 5. It's kind of weird because in 5 through 6, I was always thinking that it would be 1, 2, 3. You would go your first 3, and then 4 you would go either Manaea or Clev, and then the next 3 games you would go your 1, 2, 3 again. So I don't really know why Clev would pitch game 5 because Musgrove could pitch that game. Or sorry, why he would pitch on Friday. That's game 3. My mistake. I don't know why he wouldn't. That doesn't make much sense to me. But apparently Clev's that game. So I'm going to go Padres in 6. I thought about going Padres in 5. I thought about going Padres in 7. I think 6 is the right number. I think you bring it back home. I think you could even lose one of these first 2 games at home, and then you have a couple pretty solid pitching matchups in that when you go back to Philly. I think you got to win tonight. Wheeler's a very good pitcher. Wheeler's a really good pitcher. Noah's a really good pitcher, but I think you got to take either one of these first 2 games. I think if you split your beginning homestand, I don't think it's like a reason to be like, oh no, this is really bad. Whereas last series for the Dodgers series, my thought was if you take one of these 2 games, you have a big advantage in the series if you can split LA. I think if the Phillies split in San Diego, I don't think it's that big of an advantage just because you have Musgrove in Philly. You have Darvish again in Philly. Like you have good pitching options that are going to be available in Philadelphia, where for the Padres, it was like, okay, you're throwing Clev, which is almost a loss in game 1. And then you're like, maybe you could somehow steal that one. Padres actually almost do it. And then in game 2, it's Kershaw, Darvish. And you're like, well, you're going to have your work cut out for you against Kershaw. And it was like, if you can take one, those next, 2 games, or you have a huge advantage in terms of pitching. So I don't really feel like this is the same series. I think this one will be a little bit more back and forth, I would say, because if we're being honest, like the Padres just kind of steamrolled the Dodgers that whole series. Like, yes, the Dodgers had some moments where they were up, but like outside of Mike Clevenger, it felt like they were in control basically the whole game outside of part of game 4 on Saturday. But then they completely took over in that one. So I think this one's going to be a lot more up and down. I think the home run factor of the Philadelphia Phillies is going to be a huge thing that the Padres are. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. Can the bullpen keep pitching? Can you not allow those late inning, big time moonshots from any of these power hitters that Philly has? Because it's scary going up against that lineup. And I think the problem is if you just miss your spot one time, any of those guys, almost anyone in that lineup can take you deep. And that's going to be the really hard spot. But I'm going Padres in 6. I think Padres in 6 is your best bet. You either win. I think you just get it back to being at home. Either, what is that? 2-2, 3-2? Yeah, 3-2. So it would be 5 games on the road. Or sorry, first 5 games and then you're done being on the road. I think if you're either you got to be 3-2, I think. 3-2 on these first 5 games, and I think you're good. I think you win. And I don't know what the combination will be. It's hard to tell, but I do think that that's the recipe to move on in the series is you come back home up 3-2. That's it. You come back up 3-2. We've seen what San Diego looks like. We've seen how the guys have played in San Diego at Petco. I think you got the series in the bag if you're able to do that. But your work's cut out for you. This is a good lineup, and I think a lot of people are underestimating it. But I also think a lot of people are underestimating that the Padres have Juan Soto and Manny Machado. It seems like that just gets forgotten about when the Padres are discussed in the national media. Oh yeah, like this and that. It's like, dude, these guys you have elite superstars. You have 3 guys starting that are balling out, and you have a shutdown bullpen, an absolute lockdown bullpen. So I'm going Padres in 6 in this one. What do you guys got in the chat? And then I'm probably going to take off here in a little bit. We will be back later tonight after the game as well. But let me know what you guys got in the chat. I'll go through some final comments here for the last few minutes, and then we'll probably wrap up after that. But I'll start looking. Devin says he feels like we will win tonight but lose the Nola start. I'm kind of feeling the same way, but also if we get a big time Blake Snell game, I think that can do a lot for that one. Um, Kim just needs to forget about hitting home runs from Brian. I feel like Kim kind of has. I mean, he just kind of turned into a contact hitter this year just because he hasn't been able to drive the ball as much. His home run rate is way down compared to last season, but yet he's playing way better. So I'd rather have that be the case. Devin also says Syndergaard would probably pitch game 3. Yeah, he's almost being used more like an opener. He's not going to go the full game, almost like kind of how, not like Gonsolin, I would say for the Dodgers, but like 3 to 5 innings. 5 is probably stretching, and he's probably like 3 to 4 innings. But they're not gonna do it. Cobra says, I think we lose against Wheeler, win against Nola. So a lot of people are feeling the split in the first couple games. So I think that's okay. Now, here's what I'll counter with is, what if the Padres take the first 2 games? Dude, it's going to be insane if they take the first 2 games. If you go up against Wheeler and Nola and you win both of those games, you are so far in the driver's seat in this series, that would be massive. But you got to at least take one. You got to split this series at the bare minimum. And if you split this series, you should be able to take 2 out of 3 in Philly, I think. And even if you don't take 2 out of 3, even if you take 1 in San Diego, 1 in Philly to start, you're down 3-2. Or sorry, you're down 2-3. And then you have 2 games at home to have a chance to win it. But if you can go take those first 2 games, you're set. You're set because the Phillies pitching that they have lined up at home isn't the best. I think maybe Wheeler's going to go one of those games. I think he's going to go one. I think he'll go Sunday. I think that's when Wheeler will be slated to pitch again. So, I don't know, man. I think that you're in a good spot if you can do that. But once again, I think we said this in the game 2 game where it was like a must win. Who would you rather have on the mound than Yu Darvish in a clutch spot? I'm gonna say that tonight. Who would you rather have going against their ace than Yu Darvish? You wouldn't. I mean, you can bring up Musgrove, but Darvish is very clear the ace. They asked him about Game 5 against the Dodgers, and I think that just kind of shows like the mentality of this Padres team of just like, yeah, I'm gonna be ready to go in an elimination game. Like, what kind of question is that? I don't care if I'm on short rest. I'm gonna be ready. And that's what we've kind of seen from everyone on this team, where no matter if it's coming back late in the game where you're down 3-0, or kind of being completely written off by all of the media against the Mets to be like, really, you guys don't think we're gonna go hit DeGrom and Scherzer? And then Trent Grisham says, "Watch this, I'll hit a nuke off both of them," which that was amazing. I'm never gonna get over that he came out there and did that to start the postseason. But yeah. Zach Eflin is another possibility if the Phillies are out of options. Yeah, I think Suarez will pitch, but I don't think Suarez looked really good when he pitched last time. Or he only pitched a couple innings. Like, if outside of their 1 and 2, those guys are not going deep into games. And I'm gonna look it up right now too to see what the Phillies are ranked in terms of their bullpen. I don't know. Like, they weren't good last year. I know that. MLB bullpen rankings. Let's see. And like I said before, it's kind of hard to tell because a lot of things go with trends, with like who you acquire, stuff like that. I mean, the Phillies bullpen over this season as a team, they have a 4.15 ERA, 1.02 WHIP. So, this is playoffs. Playoffs have been 4-1. That's not that bad. In the regular season, they had a 4.27, basically a 1.4 WHIP. So not very good. They didn't allow many home runs, so Padres don't really rely on the home run ball. That's a good thing. But I still think that their bullpen isn't that great. I don't think it stacks up well enough against ours. Yeah. Desert says both of us to go off bullpen rankings. Yeah, like I said, I don't really know if I'm very confident. Like, looking at the overall rankings in the postseason, they've been okay, but I don't know. Their bullpen was bad last year, though, I remember. But I don't know. I think that if you're looking at it from where the Padres had the advantages, if you can get the starters out early, if you could beat Nola and Wheeler, like, you have a clear recipe to win, with the caveat of you cannot let them take over the game by hitting 4 home runs in a ball game. That's where it's at for me. So, couple bullpen arms for them to watch out for. Thank you for that, Devin. Desert says, for me, it's tricky to predict this series beyond saying that it's going to be a really bloody fight. Dude, that's what I'm thinking too. And I said Padres in 6. I mean, I think that this could go a bunch of different ways. I think it could look really bad for the Padres. I think it could look really good for the Padres where they just destroy them. But it can be, I ultimately think that it's going to be a big time back and forth where you have, where the Padres are able to hold the Phillies all game, and then, they hit a home run and end up taking it. They end up stealing the game, right? Because someone hit, whoever it is, Real Muto hits a 3-run bomb in the 8th inning or something, and it's going to be like just a heartbreaking loss. But for the Padres side, you're going to see them, down 2-1 or down 4-5 or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden they get a couple clutch knocks late in the game, and that 8-9 spot comes in, and they're huge for the Padres. So I think if you're San Diego, you're hoping that the starters go long. You're hoping that you neutralize the long ball as much as possible, especially in San Diego, because we already talked about it. There's not a lot of home runs in San Diego. Hoskins, Bather, and Petco. I hope not, man. I hope not. Let's not root for that one. But yeah, I see Desert also says it's gonna be a great watch, but man, I'm gonna be sweating. Yeah, I'm gonna be sweating too. It's gonna be fun though. So I think that's probably gonna do it for today, guys. Fun to do the solo lives. I just kind of up here ranting for 40 minutes, which is not what I'm used to doing on the show, but it's still pretty fun to do it. But that's what I'm going with. Padres in 6. I would say book it, but I don't really know if I think it's going to be close, man. I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be close. On the other side, we also got Guardians, Yankees about to start in roughly over an hour. I hope the the Cleveland Padres are able to pull that one out, but that'll be another great game to watch as well. So anyone on the West Coast that wasn't planning to tune into that game, I think you guys really should. It'll be a fun one. But looking forward, 8 more wins, and it's going to start tonight. So we will see you guys tonight. And hopefully the Padres are able to get it done. Hopefully Yu Darvish is able to pump and neutralize that long ball. And hopefully we're able to get Wheeler out early, because if we can get Wheeler out early, if we can get Nola out early, this series becomes that much more winnable. You're able to just take advantage of that bullpen, and you're able to get into a really good spot going back to Philly. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll be back later tonight with probably Chase and Isaac, I think. So talk to you guys then.